We're live.
We did it. I love this. I love the fact we're broadcasting to the whole universe just by hitting a simple button. I suppose first thing I'd like to do is welcome April Beach to the call. Hi, April. How you doing?
Hey, I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Tell us where you are.
I'm in Boulder, Colorado right now.
Right.
Right in the
This
center.
is
Right in the center.
right in the centre, the other centre. We're in. I'm up
The
in
other
Queensland,
center.
sunny Queensland in the north of Australia, which is great. But I'm pretty excited. Today we're going to be talking about these hidden assets in business. I'm just waiting for the scrolling at the top to tell us exactly what we're going to be talking about. But the predictable part to millions that no one talks about. It's intriguing. It's interesting. I'm going to get April to tell us a bit more about what that actually can look like for a business. So let's hand the microphone over to you.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and talk about this. This isn't a hook, even though it is a hook. The title's a hook because this is a really exciting topic for us to talk about. This is really, really true. And, what we're actually diving into is, how service based experts, service based businesses spend a lot of time building their SOPs, building their trainings, building their processes,
Mm,
and then they spend pretty much the whole rest of their business life selling them and trying to sell as many as possible and trying to scale in the best way possible. But what we're talking about today is how we can take that intellectual property, those processes, trainings, courses, assets, that frameworks that individual geniuses basically have created, even though most of them don't realize that it's a genius framework,
mm,
and make more money off of it. We're diving into the assets the businesses already have, and we're talking about what's called licensing. And licensing is allowing other companies, organizations, even educational institutions, and other businesses to utilize what you have already created, your trainings, programs, frameworks. And it is mind blowing when you realize how important it is to other companies to be able to tap into what you've already created and, frankly, what they will pay you for it. So that's what we get to talk about today.
amazing, amazing. Because often, like we work with people who want to grow their businesses, and I talk about three stages of growth. And the first one is what we call the chaos to control stage, and that's the guy that's stuck on the treadmill, running, 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 trying to make the money, trying to pay the bills, and it just the busier they get, the busier they get, right? And we try to move them from there into planning and strategy and growth. And growth is about building teams and structure, right? And we talk about working in the business versus working on the business and building that systemization piece. What you're talking about is what I would consider level three, and that's the leverage level. And there's two ways we normally see it. We see it as either acquiring other businesses to grow business. So rather than just looking for clients one by one, you look for ways to acquire and merge two businesses together, or multiplication. Multiplication is either franchising or licensing. And so I think one of my biggest, or I'm the biggest fan of Stephen Covey's Seven Habits, and I think one of my
Yes.
favorite is beginning with the end in mind. And so when I talk to business owners, I say, "What's the end game? What are you building here?" And they go, "Well, we're just trying to grow our business." I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you're a builder, you would have to have a plan with an end picture."
Right.
And so I ask this specific question. I say, "What's it going to look like when it's finished?"
Hmm.
And part of finished is it's either going to be running under management, sold, or just close the front doors because I'm stuck in the business.
Hmm.
What you're talking about is leveraging an asset that most people don't leverage. They create this asset called their business system just so that they can streamline what they do. They never consider selling it other than selling the complete business at the end. So let's take a bit of a deep dive when you talk about this idea of licensing. Who's it for?
Yeah, so it is for established business owners that have created processes, trainings, courses, programs, but they also could be just SOPs that you use within your own business, your own team. How do you
Right.
onboard a new employee, for example? If you're really
Mm,
great at that, if you have a special way about doing that, that is really important. And I think as business owners, we don't realize that those processes that we create, whether it's an actual program that we can license, and we'll talk about that, but just
yeah.
the internal processes in our businesses, they are very powerful. And they took us a long time to create, but we think that that's just kind of part of the necessary evil of what we need to do as business owners to actually
Yeah,
grow
right.
our company, right? We
Hmm.
don't realize what we call the street value of all of the time it's taken to create all of the processes and frameworks and programs we have within our businesses. So licensing is for established business owners
Yeah,
who have created a process or a training, and they're very good at what they do. They need to have received proven benchmarks through the process, or the recipients need to have received a transformational result in
yeah,
that process that they've gone through. And once we have the process frameworked and created and we know it delivers results, the next step is saying, hey, listen, we're using it here in our business. We may be even selling it and maybe even our primary service, but how can we take pieces of it and maybe repackage it and allow
yeah.
for other companies and organizations to utilize it? So as long as a business has a
Mm,
proven method, framework, training course, online courses or big things, or coaching
yeah.
programs, they are prime for licensing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So really, someone who's established, they've created SOPs because they have to grow, right? And they've proven that they're efficient at what they do. So they're starting to make an edge in the marketplace. They can now license this IP. Um,
Yes.
who's going to buy it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really funny. Before we just got on this live stream, I was recording a podcast for my show, and I was actually unpacking who is the best candidate to license. So this is
Yeah.
also fresh because I was just talking about that too, and we can dive a little bit more into that later. But it also goes hand in hand with who's going to buy it, right? And so who you sell it to also affects what you were saying, the end result, the cadence of the business, the
Mm,
lifestyle. If you sell it to a big company who is primed to buy many licensed programs, then the red tape is a little bit more than if you were to sell it to smaller organizations. But across the board, corporations, so we'll start at the top, the biggest companies buy licensed programs and trainings for both internal use. They could purchase it for a skills training or
yeah.
to, level up their people on sales or understanding certain processes, or they also buy them internally for corporate benefits. So if you are a wellness consultant or a mindfulness coach or something that has to do with lifestyle and health and relationships, corporations buy those programs for benefits because they want to retain their top talent and they want to deliver amazing programs. But then they
Right.
also buy programs that they can deliver forward facing. So they also buy programs that they can actually sell straight out as
Mm,
if they were their own. If you have a forward facing program or course or a training, they can sell it as part of their offer suite, or they can bring it in and add it to existing programs they have. So we have corporations, nonprofit organizations are the exact same way.
hmm.
Nonprofit organizations, they all have different buying drivers. Nonprofits are really looking for programs that align with their mission and their end
Yeah.
result, and being able to show proof that the program that they have has contributed towards their ultimate mission. But we
Yeah.
also have startups. We also have agencies. So I have a client, for example, and she's a branding strategist, and she
Hmm.
loves to connect with publishers because her area of expertise is teaching authors how to brand themselves. Well, publishers, they just want to sell books, but it's important that authors know how to brand themselves.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
so we talk about, bringing her program in and releasing it to agencies and publishing houses because it benefits the greater good, all the way down to small businesses just like me and you that have teams. Our team is 7. We're a tiny business, and we value bringing in other programs, whether they're for our clients or within our own internal systems.
Okay. Because I suppose when I think about selling intellectual property, a lot of people have a fear around this, don't they? Their fear is that it's my secret source for my business. Why would I sell my secret source? Doesn't that mean my competitor can just copy what I do?
Mm-hmm.
How do you?
I Yeah, I love that you asked that question. So There is an important conversation to have when we're thinking about licensing. And I
Mm.
love what you said about starting with the end result. I'm the same way. You and I have talked and we're getting to know each other, but
Yeah.
I'm a second generation lifestyle entrepreneur. What that means is that every single business I build is first I build the lifestyle and then I build the business around it. That is the same way with any offer we sell. First, we decide how we want our business and our life to look, and then
Yeah.
we pick what we're going to sell to build around it. In the case of licensing, that is very, very important. So if
Mm.
you have a primary program and you want to keep it for yourself, it's your life's work. I have quite a few clients, literally their programs that they're licensing, it was like their life's work to create these methods and these processes, right?
Yeah.
But they got to a point where they were just ready to just have it reach more people. That's the thing with licensing. We can go from
Right.
reaching 1,000 people to 100,000 people.
Hmm.
And so they wanted their work to have a further reach. And then they have this conversation with themselves about exactly what you said. How can I keep this? How can I keep selling it myself and allow for other organizations to distribute it? And here are a couple of things to think about. First of all, there isn't any right or wrong way. That you can absolutely keep selling something directly and license it to other companies to distribute.
Yeah.
But but the big but is we'll talk about big booties here. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that it's really beneficial for the licensee and for you. So usually what we do is we'll make some modifications to the program. We'll extract parts of the program and not necessarily release the whole entire thing. Because if
Right.
you're still going to sell that program yourself, we want you to be the gold standard, and then when another company distributes it, they might have a different rendition of that program. So that's one way. The
Yep.
other way we do that is we release it to companies. We allow different companies to license it that don't serve your same audience. You
Yeah.
might have a
Gotcha.
like mission, but you just don't release it or license it to companies where you're competing with the same audience.
Mm. Yeah. Right. So the idea is to make sure that you're sophisticated about who you license to. You make
Mm-hmm.
adjustments to the product so it becomes a not a direct competitor to what you're currently doing in the marketplace. So this takes a bit of thought process, I guess, and really trying to, because I think you said this just before we turned the recording on, was it's a different audience to your current audience. So it's a bit of a shift for the person running a business to say, hey, we're going to have a new prospect, a new client, a new avatar that we're going to be selling this to. How do
That's
you
exactly
go
right.
about establishing that? Is that literally
Yep.
like do you start with competitors or do you move away from that and you say no? Look, let's not go with competitors. Let's go with people who can use your service that are not going to compete. What's
Mm-hmm.
the approach?
So, yes. So I advise clients, if you want to continue to sell the product or program yourself, then
Mm,
do not sell it to competitors. I don't think that that creates frankly, a fair marketplace in a lot of cases.
mm,
However, if you are ready to get out of that space, if you're done releasing that program, you want to go write the next book you want to write or whatever else that is, and you're
yeah,
ready to have somebody else distribute it, it it's one of the most beautiful things because we literally turn your competition into your clients,
yeah, right,
and we actually sell the program to the competition, and you make more money, reach more people. And what's so powerful about it is you still level up your thought leadership in that space. So you
yeah,
still have like a stronghold on that space, because most people, they want their mark still left in the work that they have done. And so that's a really great opportunity. So if you don't want to keep distributing yourself, then turning your competition into your clients and leveling up your thought leadership is a really powerful way. Other ways we go about doing it is we could allow for the competition to release the course or the training as it is. And then maybe we want to change and say, hey, you know what? I'm only going to work with high end VIP clients. 10 of them a year are going to charge each of them $100,000, and that's going to be it. So we can
yeah,
actually still have the owner of the business still deliver their own IP, and we maybe reformat the offer structure and how they do that.
yeah, right, right. So I suppose what we're thinking about is we're thinking about this idea of as a long-term vision for the business. Part of the objective has to be how do I leverage? And for me,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about leverage in business, leverage just literally by definition means doing more with less effort.
Mhm.
And what you've just talked about, leveling up and reaching more people, having a thin slice of a big pie is better than a big slice of a small pie. Um, and this is the progression, because you've talked about this idea of, leveling up. You've talked about this idea of becoming a thought leader. And I think for some people, they need to let go of the past to embrace the future. And a lot of the past is the doing of the work itself on so many levels. Is that really what this is about?
It is. And, I think if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes we find peace in the busy work. I've been
Mm,
there. I've owned 7 companies. My husband and I currently operate 5 businesses right now. I know there's peace in kind of doing things we know how to do really well in the regular daily operations and,
yes.
kind of almost like sliding back to things that are comfortable for us. There's peace in that. And so I
Mm,
totally identify that. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we also, because we're entrepreneurs, we can't help ourselves. We have all these other things that we want to do and all these
mm,
other ideas that we want to build and all these next levels that we want to walk into. And so licensing is a great time in thinking about that. You don't even have to license your best signature program. We can start by licensing something smaller and seeing how you like that process and having you collect a couple thousand or hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. And you'll start liking licensing very, very quickly. So we don't have to, jump into the whole thing at once if people aren't ready for that. But I
yeah.
think if we're honest with ourselves, I mean, I don't know, with me personally, I never stop creating. I have a list of things that I really want to do. And frankly, I know I'm not going to be able to do them unless I
Mm,
let things go. But I am really protective of what I've created and I'm
mm,
really protective of my IP. So if I'm going to think about allowing somebody else to release it, I
yeah.
want my mark on it. I want to make sure it's benefiting my family and my business. I want to feel really proud about that.
Mm,
And so how I license my programs are licensed in 13 different countries, and how I do that is I actually allow for other businesses to white label it. People really don't even know that they're my programs, and I normally I don't actually recommend that. It works out for me, but the
mm,
finances, and I get to see the numbers of the people that that are reached through my content,
yeah.
and that makes me feel significant, and that's enough for me in those cases. So I think we
Yeah.
all just
Gotcha.
have to kind of decide what that is for each one of us.
So let's go back to, so people in their current business. What are the trigger points? When do they start thinking about licensing? What's the signals that say we should be going down the licensing path? What are the
Right.
telltale signs?
Mhm. Right. They're usually very, very tired of selling the way they're selling. And some of them are tired of meeting with clients one on one. Some of them are, oops, did you freeze there? Okay, there you go. I think you froze a little bit there. Sorry,
Just for a
David.
moment. That's okay.
Okay. Some of them are, they're just tired. They're tired of launches. They're tired of social selling. They feel like they're on the hamster wheel. And so we find that businesses, when they are ready to talk about licensing, that they're really just saying, I just don't know how much longer I want to either work with clients in this manner. I want more
Mm,
time. I want to open up more time freedom and space to build other things. So that's a really big trigger. The other thing is making more money. So we have a lot of experts. I know you have a lot of experts in your space. And the thing with a lot of true experts is they're too busy in the trenches being experts. And they're kind of too busy being behind the scenes, creating change and transformation. And they're not the ones that are usually out there spending 10 hours a day on social media, developing a big fan base. And so
yeah.
sometimes experts are these amazing hidden gems, and they realize, gosh, I'm never going to crack the Instagram code and have 50,000 followers, nor do they usually actually want to.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so they're looking for ways to increase their profit and increase the expanse of their reach and their work. And they're just tired of doing all the little things that really don't equal the big results. Those are the triggers that we see. And frankly, if I'm being really honest, this is really honest. I hope I can be this honest with your audience. It's usually people over the age of 40
Yeah.
who we've been doing what we've been doing for a really long time, and
Yeah.
we're ready to design the next 10, 15, 20 years of our life. And we know we want that land in Costa Rica or whatever. Like we're kind of tired of playing business and we're ready to do serious business. Those are usually the triggers.
Because I think what you're describing, I often say the hardest transition in business is from self-employment to proper business owner, right? Because Kiyosaki had a great book years ago, The Cash Flow Quadrant, where he talked about, people think they're self-employed, they're in business, they're really just working for themselves and it's high risk. The transition to being an owner means stop doing the work and start paying people to do the work. And then the last part of his equation is going from business owner to investor. And
Mm.
I think what we're talking about here is that second stage, which is going from, yes, I manage a team and we make money and I get profit, but I still have to be there. Investor literally says, I've created a process, I've created a system. I can now not only just sell it once, I can license it. And so you're sort of stepping right out of the executional part of the business. Um, I think some people have that end in mind when they start, and they're the best people to work with because they've actually put in the destination into the GPS, which is I want to have a nice island holiday retreat in the Bahamas, and I
Yeah.
need to have it by the time I'm 50, and I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And so I'm either going to be sitting on a beach in a little lean-to, or I'm going to have some decent money. They've made the decision that
Right.
there's an exit, okay, and I find that at least half the business owners we talk to have no exit, no clear exit in their plan. And I think this is definitely one part of that exit strategy because you're either going to sell it or sell parts of it, or you're going to try and get someone to run it for you so you don't need to be there. But there is a point in time where you say, I'm done. And I need
Yeah.
to work out how to either get myself out of here, or if you're young and ambitious, under 40, how do I reach more people? And I think you touched on that
Right.
right at the early start. So I suppose the telltale signs is I'm tired, I'm running on a treadmill, I do a really good job, but I can't scale any further. What's the size of a business where it's reasonable to start looking at licensing? Is there a sort of minimal size? The answer is no.
No, no, when I first started licensing, I wasn't
Mhm.
looking for the opportunity. It landed in my lap,
Yeah.
and I had a very busy consulting business, and doing webinars and courses. This was back in
Mm.
2006, 7, and 8, and somebody approached me, and at that point in time, I mean, we were probably doing maybe 150,000 a year. It was a
Okay.
very small consulting business, and I was
Yeah. Right.
super busy, and I had 3 little kids running around my ankles, and just trying to figure things out,
Uh
and
huh.
a very small team. I think my only employee at the time was my sister, and
Yep.
and and a corporation approached me to license, and it was more money than I had ever made in one sale because I had valuable content and they wanted it.
Yeah. Right.
And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? What have I been missing here? That the typical businesses that we work with, they're generating over an average, the lowest point is 10K a month. A lot of them
Okay.
are bringing about 90K, US, a month, and they have teams, they have trainings, they have programs, they have systems, or they're
Mm-hmm.
really great service-based businesses and advisors, and they're kind
Mm.
of wondering, have I hit this ceiling? Have I hit this threshold? Have I hit the maximum amount of money I can make based on the way my products are modeled?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
we dive into those questions of licensing, and it's really the next step in
Yeah.
that
Totally.
process. So my only prerequisite, and I am really serious about this when I say this to people, the only prerequisite is you have to be very good at what you do. Right. So
Right.
we don't want to license anything that somebody's just winging and it's not actually a proven process.
Yeah.
So you have to have delivered what you have created multiple times enough and created a system that delivers predictable results, whether it's
Yeah.
a
Gotcha.
training program or a framework. Those are the prerequisites. And of
Mm.
course, there's a couple of other things like trademarking and legalities and those things that you need to get into to actually license, which don't necessarily apply to this conversation, but you have
Yeah.
to be ready to play big. And one other thing I will say is in a prerequisite is, and I want to say this in the kindest way, you have to have a very healthy understanding and belief and ego in the fact that you are good at what you do. And so when we license programs to other businesses, they are trusting us.
Hmm.
And to have the conversation to say, hey, listen, this is what I have. These are the results I can deliver for you.
Yeah,
Let's have a conversation about that. You need to be able to walk into that environment confidently. Otherwise, if you're just wishful thinking, you're never
yeah,
going to sell a licensed program. So confidence is a really big key indicator to successfully licensing programs as well. But
yeah,
not a egotistical, it's a healthy ego in knowing that you have a great product.
yeah. And it's a interesting space because you're selling an invisible product in a lot of ways,
Yes.
aren't you? When selling IP. So, what are the first steps? What does someone need to do to get this onto the radar, put it in their
Yeah.
business plan, and understand that licensing's the go? Where do we start?
Yeah. The first step is what we call getting people to the launch pad. It's not even launching off the launch pad. The first
Yeah,
step is having some conversations and are we on the launch pad? Do we want to talk about launching into this? And the steps of that are, first of all, taking a minute and doing what I call an asset inventory. Going through the trainings, the SOPs, the frameworks, the process you have both internally for your operations that work really well. Maybe you have a certain method of doing things and
mm,
client facing and
mm,
literally splashing down. And most of the people, when they go through this process, they will actually realize that their trainings way back from 2016 that they built or processes they've created that they might not have even sold before. We're talking an asset inventory where you're really sitting down saying, I created this and I did this and these things, help deliver these type of results. And so first of all, starting with an asset inventory. The second thing is exactly like you said, it's understanding, do I really still want to hold on to these programs?
yeah,
Or am I allowing somebody else to co-release them with me? Or am I ready to totally get these off my plate? I want to change my life. I want to do business differently. I want management different. So those are really the first three steps in the process. And then we go into the point of asking, who's going to buy it? Who do you want to
mm,
sell it to?
yeah,
And
gotcha.
based on, so each question builds onto the next. First, we need to decide if you want to keep selling it yourself. And that
Yeah,
helps us decide then who we're going to sell it to, whether it's
mm,
within your space or outside of your space. And
yeah,
then we go and we start researching what those companies are looking for in relation to the problem that you solve. And we make a
yeah,
wish list of companies to connect with, and then we
mm,
start talking about the parameters of that and what I call the rules of licensing. How
yeah,
long how long are you going to give it to them for? And so
right.
all of the details of that.
Okay, so really, like there is a path. It's pretty clear. It's a decision that has to be made, and I suppose the first one is a very raw look at what do you actually have, and is it of value. Second one is, do you want to let go of it, or how do you want to let
Hmm.
go of it? And then the third one
Hmm.
is, once you've done that, we get to the launch pad and we start almost disassembling everything and starting to build from scratch this
Yeah.
brand new, basically a brand new product. That's
Well, I will say what is so beautiful about that is
yeah,
oftentimes we don't have to change the product at all. We just change the buyer. So we're
yeah,
doing work that people have already done. And depending on what it is, especially if it's processes and internal trainings, we don't have to build things from scratch.
yeah,
And also who we're selling it to, they might want to just take the processes and the assets and distribute it within their organization. So I actually tell our clients to, don't spend a ton of time rebuilding something from scratch. Let's first make the decision and get you out there and have the conversations before
yeah.
we
Gotcha.
start overhauling programs.
Okay, so maybe what I should have said is it's not about rebuilding programs from scratch. It's about
Yeah,
creating a sales pitch, right?
it
So
is.
packaging it in a way that's attractive to buyers. And then I think what you just described there is almost the lean startup saying, let's see if there's a market, let's see if they're interested. And when they put their money on the table, then you can go and check that everything actually fits in nicely.
That's exactly right. And then the most important step to the sales process, and I'll
Mm,
leave this here. And by the way, LinkedIn, whoever's watching live on LinkedIn, it's a great place to do this, is connecting with what we call the internal champion. So that person within an organization who you think would be the most interested in the solution that you provide, the most passionate about that, and
yeah,
starting to build relationships with those people. Networking. The interesting thing about licensing is we go back to a lot of old school business building of, 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
where you're going to events and you're having coffee people and you're speaking on stages. It's a lot of relationships and, this grassroots type of marketing that feels really good, and it's very, very simple. No more complicated funnels, no huge ad spend. It's really a very simple way of doing business.
Yeah, super interesting. So now the great news. This is just the start. I've convinced April to come and spend, an hour and a half with us to actually go through this process. Because I think for most people, when we're running our planning workshop in 3 weeks, for those who don't know, and April's actually committed to coming and joining us because I think part of planning the future of your business is integrating your way out. And in this scenario, it's going to be, how do I leverage myself out of my business? Creating this IP as an asset, and then using that as your springboard to get you out is a brilliant idea. So anyone who's interested in coming to that session, I don't know how we're going to communicate it, but you can reach out to me. I think I'll put a link in this recording afterwards so that people can see how to get to the event. But it's about 3 weeks' time. It's on Thursday, ironically. So same day of the week in 3 weeks. And we're going to be doing a deep dive because I think in planning for business, that's where this all starts, is do I want an exit and what's it going to look like? And if leveraging through selling my IP is an option, how am I starting to set up for it right now? Because you
Right.
said this right at the start, creating your SOPs is part of just getting organized in your own business. But if you now realize that doing that is going to pay in the future as well, it gives a whole new value proposition to going through that cycle.
It
So,
does.
April, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up today? Because it's been an amazing.
I'm just I'm so excited to work with your team and work with your people. We're going to be unpacking assets. We're going to be identifying the top 10 industries and exactly what they're buying right now, so you can match your programs and your assets to the company. And I geek out on teaching this. I literally, licensing changed my life, you guys. If you follow me, or if we hang out or whatever, I travel 6 months a year and I own multiple companies, and it's because of licensing. No joke. And it's so
Yeah.
simple. So don't get worried. You have to be overcomplicating it. This is a very simple process. So we're going to unpack this together, and I'm really excited to show your teams how to dive into this.
Amazing, amazing. April, thanks so much for your time today. It's been awesome. I'm excited. Now I'm even more excited after hearing all the details. So we're going to catch up with you in 3 weeks' time. And thanks so much for tuning in today.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me, David.
Pleasure.